Finally, PC users can join in on the Spider-Man action without modding GTA or playing Spider-Man 3.
I'm going to die!
After being exclusively on PlayStation for nearly 4 years, Marvel's Spider-Man is coming to PC this week. More specifically, the remastered version, which originally launched on PS5, containing higher frame rates, ray tracing, and new Peter Parker. Look, it's not that this character model looks bad, it's just that they didn't start with it in the first place. Anyway, Marvel's Spider-Man is another addition to PlayStation's growing lineup of PC ports, following God of War on PC earlier this year, which I loved. It offered a slew of graphical and accessibility options that made it playable on just about any build, even looking good on lower settings. So is Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered another knockout PC port for PlayStation? To find out, we tested the game on 3 different PCs. Mine, which is a medium-spec build housing a 1660 Ti, Andre's, which is a high-spec build with a 3090, and Jake's Steam Deck, which he made an entire video about. So if you're looking to pick up Spider-Man Remastered on the Steam Deck, be sure to give it a watch. Using Andre's PC, we compared the PC graphics to the PS5 version's 3 graphical settings: fidelity and performance with ray tracing. From what I could tell, the PC version has noticeably higher resolution textures than even the fidelity mode on PS5. But undoubtedly, the biggest upgrades on PC are the very high resolution ray traced reflections. Here's what Andre has to say about it.
It looks good. Okay, Spider-Man's always looked good on whichever platform we play it on, but with an RTX 3090 that let me crank the graphics settings to max with ray tracing turned on at 60 frames per second, oh baby! Although it wasn't a perfectly stable 60 frames per second at those settings, as it was getting some slight hitches every few frames. But the overall graphic fidelity made that pretty easy to overlook. The quality of the ray tracing here in particular makes New York come to life, with everything being accurately reflected in every single window pane of every single building. It's truly a sight to behold. And the 3090 made it look significantly better at 60 frames per second than the performance ray trace reflections on PlayStation 5. Just be aware that turning on ray tracing will make it impossible to go back to the flat and fake reflections from before.
Now, I played Spider-Man Remastered on my 1660 Ti at default medium settings with some minor adjustments. This allowed me to run the game at 1080p with a frame rate of about 45 to 60 FPS. Even though it was a bummer that I couldn't hit a consistent frame rate without major changes to the visuals, I honestly didn't mind it that much. I knew it wasn't going to run perfectly anyway, and the game ran smooth enough for me to have a great time. Not once did a frame rate hiccup occur that was so detrimental that I wound up losing a battle. Sure, the textures looked downright awful up close, but during gameplay, I barely even noticed them. That said, I still have gripes with the graphics settings. For one, the anti-aliasing options are a joke, only offering SMAA and TAA, with the latter being the only reasonable choice as SMAA looks like a pixelated mess. I tried out some of the upscaling options, one of them being an in-game upscaler, and the other AMD FSR 2.0, which is AMD's version of Nvidia's DLSS. But since I don't have an RTX card, I can't use DLSS. After trying out all these options, all I noticed was the frame rate didn't change and the resolution got worse. There was even an option for these upscalers to change the visuals to target a specific frame rate, but again, it remained unchanged for me. So needless to say, I don't recommend these options if you lack an RTX GPU. Now let's talk about the other PC-specific features, namely mouse and keyboard support, and like the filthy console peasant I am, I wanted to play with a controller right away. But I refrained myself and actually started with the mouse and keyboard controls, and I played the entire intro with them. I thought these controls worked pretty well, and people who are used to this scheme may not find many problems with it. I, however, switched back to a controller as soon as the intro ended because I'm far too used to playing Spider-Man this way. I think I killed him. Though most of my time was spent with an Xbox controller, I switched to the PlayStation 5 DualSense and it felt exactly like playing on a PS5, with the unique rumble and haptic feedback features all intact on PC. You can even hear Spider-Man's web shooters come out of the speaker, which reminds me, when I first plugged in the DualSense, my PC first detected it as a speaker. So the game audio came out of there until I switched it back to my desktop speakers. Kind of weird, but it's an easy fix. Overall, I'm not as impressed with the PC port of Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered as I was with God of War. Granted, God of War was corridor-based, and Spider-Man is open world, which naturally makes it more demanding. What's less forgivable, however, are some of the graphics settings that are either useless or not well utilized, like the anti-aliasing and upscaling options. Even then, the game ran smooth enough for me to where I still had a great time with it, because the Spider-Man Remastered is a fun and thrilling game. Marvel's Spider-Man has everything fans had been missing since the mid-2000s. An open-world New York City that's fun to swing around, fluid combat that's smooth to execute, and most importantly, stealth sections where you play as Mary Jane. Thank you, Insomniac. Okay, joking aside, Marvel's Spider-Man has a lot of things going for it, resulting in what might be the best Spider-Man game of all time. I mean, that still seems to be the consensus even 4 years since its original release. And honestly, this game's greatness can be felt in the first 20 minutes alone. I remember the first time I pressed the swing button and I instantly fell in love with Marvel's Spider-Man. Traversal is one of this game's major strengths, as the simple act of moving is already fun. In traditional Spider-Man fashion, he web swings across the city to get around while looking for criminal activities. Not only does he swing, he also wall runs, web zips, and hops off building points. All of these techniques combine to make traveling a seamless experience. Although sometimes it gets a bit finicky whenever I try to reach an objective and my momentum is so fast that I miss it, especially if that objective is something as tiny as a collectible. It's nothing major, just a bit annoying. So while exploring the Big Apple is fun, how much is there to do? Well, there's a lot of activities to unlock, such as taking out enemy hideouts, completing research assignments, and stopping crimes that pop up on your police scanner. There's also smaller activities like collecting Peter's old backpacks, taking photographs of New York landmarks, and finding Black Cat's hidden pop figures. I don't think they're pops, but to me they're pops, so leave me alone. I dub these missions activities because there are actual side missions in the game that range from finding pigeons and investigating an imposter Spider-Man. These are a bit more lengthy than the side activities, and there aren't nearly as many of them. Truthfully, as fun as some of these missions and side activities are, I always thought they fell into traps of older open-world games. There's a lot of tasks on this map, but there isn't much variety in them. They're either collect this object or beat these guys up with hardly any in between. Even some missions require you to tail NPCs, and I wish developers left those in the 7th generation. It's not too bad if you play through the story and complete these tasks every once in a while, but when you beat the story and complete the rest of them, it feels like a hassle if you left a lot behind. Trust me, I've platinumed the game on PS4, and I rarely platinum games. However, Spider-Man's biggest strength is that no matter how repetitive a task may be, it's made much more enjoyable through the gameplay. Normally, collecting a bunch of stuff would be boring, but I said earlier that the simple act of moving Spider-Man is fun in and of itself, so that makes looking for these backpacks and figurines at least bearable. That said, any mission that involves taking on a bunch of thugs is absolutely entertaining, as the combat system in Spider-Man is one of my all-time favorites in any game. You punch and kick enemies on the ground, in the air, and you can even web items from the environment to throw at them, like trash cans, car doors, even their grenades. The combat gets even better over time as you unlock more moves and gadgets by leveling up and progressing through the story. Some of my favorite gadgets are the impact web and web bombs. I just like sticking foes to the ground or walls when I knock them down. Different costumes can shake up the combat as well, since you can unlock suit powers that give you an upper hand, such as increased battle focus, a Spider-Bro robot, and holographic projections to confuse your enemies. They're stylish and effective. I prefer the Tobey Maguire suit as well, but if you don't, I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye. You want forgiveness? Get religion. Everything about Spider-Man's combat just flows together perfectly. No enemy type feels out of place, and no move or gadget is useless. And once you master the combat after a few hours of playing, Spider-Man moves as flawlessly as a ballerina, one that throws hands and feet and webs. Finally, there's the story, which back in 2018, I declared was the best Spider-Man story ever told on a screen. And then Spider-Verse came out a few months later and quickly dethroned it. So now I think it's the second best Spider-Man story ever told on a screen. It starts out standard, with Spider-Man defeating Kingpin, causing a crime organization called the Demons to come out of the woodwork. While this is run-of-the-mill for Spider-Man, what really shines about the story are the characters and their relationships. Peter meets friends new and old. He rekindles his relationship with MJ, he works tirelessly to change the world with Dr. Octavius, and he helps Miles Morales get through the grief of losing his father. It's a wonderful story, beautifully told through great writing and talented actors. And if the last hour of this game doesn't leave you in a puddle of tears, then you're dead inside. Don't get mad at me, I just work here. So it's safe to say that I like Marvel's Spider-Man a lot as a game, but when it comes to the PC port, it's a solid version to play, but not exactly perfect. Even though it runs fine, some of the features don't work as well as intended, namely the ones that involve upscaling, but if you play the game at a native resolution anyway, you won't have to worry about it. However, the control options are great, and it was still fun for me even on my medium spec PC. But this is definitely one to get if you own a fancy RTX card. Still, I liked Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered on PC a lot, and I recommend checking it out if you don't have a PS4 or 5 and your PC is good enough to run it at medium to high settings. So will you be checking out the game on PC? Let us know in the comments below, and check out the videos on the right for more topics you might be interested in. Until next time, bye.